I had a major whoopsie, and look, it's no secret that table saws cause something like a bazillion finger injuries every year. Well, I managed to cut mine off in probably the most boneheaded way imaginable. There was some silver lining. Actually, there was a lot of silver lining, but one thing in particular is that I just learned a simple step I can take that's going to prevent or at least greatly reduce the chance of any kind of injury happening like this again, no matter what kind of cut I'm making. But let me bring you guys up to speed, kind of let you know how this all went down. So I was working on a project. Actually, I was juggling a couple of different projects at the time, but right when this happened, I was working on a project with some thinner, it was about 1/2 inch stock. I wasn't even using a table saw at the time. The last time I had used the table saw, I was cutting some thicker 8/4 inch stock. 8/4 meaning like 8/4 of an inch. It's the fancy way of saying 2 inches thick. Something like this, not this piece of wood. This is actually my just ghetto tripod that I move around. So that means the blade was up on the table saw at least 2 inches, probably something like 2 1/4 inches or something like that. A blade up 2 inches with thin stock, not a really good idea. It's just a lot of exposed blade that doesn't need to be there. And if you think about this with like an extreme example, if you were to lower the blade all the way down into the saw, it'd be impossible to cut yourself or even your wood on it, right? And the opposite of that, if you were to raise the blade all the way up, or even just magically somehow all the way up to the ceiling, I mean, that would be a very dangerous saw. You'd be like keeping your distance around that thing because, I mean, that thing would be just ready to lop off a limb at any second. So I could have lowered the blade, and I should have, but I didn't. And that kind of brings me to the second thing that really went wrong here, and that's that I had the thought, I remember thinking, just this one cut real quick. Clearly, that's a terrible thing to think, right? Safety rules obviously don't apply only when you're gonna make a cut 5 times or 10 times or 50 times. They count when it's just one cut, and I'm a clear example of that because I only had one cut and I snipped it right off. I would probably bet that most table saw injuries happen when it's like a one-off kind of cut. If you're gonna cut something multiple times, I think people generally would take more time to like set up for the cut and everything and get things right, and it'd be safer. But the third thing that sort of took this train off the tracks is you will notice that something's missing on my saw, and that is that saw has no blade guard. It had a blade guard, I took it off. I don't know exactly when I took it off or where I put it. I squirreled it away somewhere, I'm still looking for it. But I sure wish it had been on there because it's a lot harder to cut yourself on a table saw when there's a blade guard on it. Not impossible, you could probably find a way to do it somehow, but it'd be a lot harder. Going forward, I'm definitely gonna treat my blade guard like a tool. If I take it off, I'm gonna put it back on when I'm done. Just like I take a tool off the wall, when I'm done using it, I put it back where it goes. And the fourth thing, and this is what I think really qualifies this as like the ultimate dummy mistake, is that like if you asked anybody, what's the best way to not cut your finger off with a table saw? What are they gonna say? Use a push stick. I didn't use a push stick. It feels like the most boneheaded thing to have done because like even people that don't use table saws would be able to answer that, right? And so basically I was breaking every rule in the book. And when you break every rule in the book, I mean, it's not really any surprise what's gonna happen. It was a little bit of a surprise. Right when it happened, it surprised me. But after like my adrenaline calmed down and everything, I wasn't surprised. Kind of feel like I was asking for it. Like I said, it surprised me. I'm not sure exactly what happened. I know I was breaking in every rule in the book, and it was on my left index finger, so that tells me that either I was clearing waste away or I reached over the saw. Which of those it was, I have no idea. Like I said, there was some silver lining. For one thing I'm gonna do going forward, besides obviously just following safety rules, is every time I use the saw when I'm done, I'm gonna lower the blade all the way down. That's gonna make it so that anytime I wanna use the saw, I actually have to like be intentional about what I'm doing and put a little bit of thought into it. If I pick up a piece of wood, raise the blade up, kind of get prepared for what I'm doing, get in the right mindset, and just not have that temptation to think, well, just this one cut real quick. Some of the other silver lining is, honestly, the cut I had, I took off halfway down my fingernail. I got the bone and everything, so that made it a little bit more complicated with antibiotics and stuff. But I feel like I got off easy. It could have been so much worse, and I think I just learned a hard, painful, and expensive lesson that could have been much harder, more painful, and more expensive, and more life-altering. Taking off your finger at the tip of the finger, like I'm gonna have like a normal looking functional finger when it finishes healing. And also I just really do hope that this can either be a wake-up call or somehow prevent the same injury from happening to someone else. But this really wouldn't be a YouTube table saw injury video if two things didn't happen. One, gotta show the injury, right? And I will, but I'm gonna put that closer to the end of the video just because some people wanna see that and some people really do not wanna see that. So I'm gonna give you a warning and stuff ahead of time. But the second thing is saw stop. Do you wish you had a saw stop? Are you gonna get a saw stop? Saw stop, saw stop, saw stop. Yeah, I wish I had a saw stop. That would have been nice. That would have been a heck of a lot nicer, but I didn't. And like I said, I learned a hard lesson. So I'm probably not going to get one because I feel like I learned my lesson and I don't intend to learn that lesson again. The one time where I would definitely get a saw stop, like today without hesitation, would be if my kids were also using this table saw, which they don't use table saw. But if that was the case, I definitely would, just because I would want to do everything in my power so that they would not have to learn the lesson the hard way like I did. So fair warning, if you don't like seeing blood, this isn't like totally gruesome or anything, but if you don't like the blood and guts thing, you might want to go ahead and click off, because I'm going to show the picture of my finger a couple days after I cut it. And as you can see, it's stitched up. They pulled the pad of my finger up to the nail bed so that it's going to heal, looking like a pretty normal finger. The bone was exposed and everything, so I had antibiotics for a while. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's healing really well. I'm healing like a cyborg. I cannot believe how well it's doing already. So that's pretty much it. And if you're new to the channel, I usually do not have a lot of table saw kind of stuff on here. Typically it's like hand tools, and that's really the stuff that I like to highlight in these YouTube videos. So anyway, if you're new to the channel, check out some of the other videos, and if you like it, be sure to subscribe. Thanks guys, and I'll see y'all on the next one.